Hi everyone. I was actually just sitting here working in my journal this morning, and I thought I would just turn the camera on. I have no plan, there's no concept for this video or reasoning like the last one that I did. This is just me playing in my journal, but I wanted to make sure that I posted more videos to YouTube than I have been. So I figured I'd turn the camera on. I am not doing any live streaming or anything like that because, amazingly enough, I still do not have internet since Hurricane Ian, which would have been what, like 6-7 months ago. Oh, there we are. It's a particularly interesting thing because I decided to switch to a new company. I was frustrated with the company that I had. I'd been frustrated with them for years. They were really the worst. So because my service was out for the hurricane, I decided to switch over to a new company, and they were offering that they had a brand new high-speed internet service here in my area. Unfortunately, since I switched to them, I have not had anything, but I did get a little bit of incredibly slow dial-up, was faster type of access. They have been here 7 or 8 times, I think, trying to fix the internet. It has something to do with the way they run, because they run their cables off of the power lines somehow. I really don't know how. But they've been here and installed the service on 2 different sets of power lines going in 2 completely different directions, and they still can't seem to figure out what they've done wrong. They keep telling me that there is like wires that are crossed, the signal is crossed, something like that. And they just keep randomly showing up at my house. Most of the time, they don't even notify me they're coming until after they've already abandoned it and left. I just happen to look out and see them out there, and I'm like, oh, they're here again. And then I'll get a phone call or a text message like 2 or 3 hours later after they're gone, and they'll be like, yeah, we're coming out today. And I'm like, well, you've actually been here and left, but okay. And so far as I know, I still don't have internet. So luckily my parents live directly across the street from me, so I just record videos and then pop them onto an external hard drive, and record, and if I'm editing, I'm so lazy, I edit them and then pop them on an external hard drive and drive over there, and walk over there, and upload them from their service. I actually can access their service, I think, from like my front yard. During the hurricane, at one point, the kids were here, and Maddie and Logan would go hang out under a large tree and play on their switches because they could access their great-grandparents' internet from there. It was so funny. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of pop on here and do a little art journaling. I've been working through this particular page for a while. I had actually used, you can see like a teeny tiny bit of it right here. I had actually used one of my collage pages on here and had it sort of all set up, and some tissue paper, like printed tissue paper napkin, and I had it all set up to make a beautiful page out of it. And then I got called away, and when I came back, I keep these jars for water, and the cats, I didn't latch the door properly. The cats came in here and knocked a very dirty water jug off, and it didn't saturate the whole book, but it splashed all across that page, and then it sat there because I didn't get a chance to come back in here for a couple of days, so it sat there for several days just soaking up the water. It pretty much ruined the whole page, and so then I just went ahead and started just being super loose and creative with it, since it was already kind of, in a state of destruction at that point. It was like a hurricane came through. A kitty hurricane. But now I'm just kind of building it out into a finished page. I thought this dress was, this is an advertisement, I forget who the designer is now, but I thought this dress was very interesting because it reminded me of how I take jewelry from magazine images, and I cut the jewelry out and then I use it for different elements. And this literally looks to me like a necklace that they've just put on the back of a tiny model to turn it into a dress. And I don't really know, I think it is actually technically a dress, but it basically looks like a piece of jewelry, like she's wearing a giant piece of jewelry. I thought that was funny, so I ended up including it for that purpose, just because it reminded me so much of my art journals, where I do that on purpose with actual large scale model jewelry, and kind of turn it into accessories and clothing. I drew on this page initially with a bunch of flowers, and I'm just going through and finding them. I can still see the blue watercolor pencil that I drew them with, so I'm just locating them basically and bringing the white petals back out again. I'm sure they'll pull in some of this color because all of this color is basically just watercolor, maybe a little bit of gouache, but mostly I think it's just watercolor and ink. I really like to use ink and brushes. I've been doing that for so many years now. So once this is this white is added, I'll have to wait and let it dry because I'm just using an opaque white. Basically, it's supposed to be like a white ink, but it's basically just like a gouache, in my opinion. It's probably enough of them. I might pull a couple out here. I was thinking about the video that I did about style, because someone had asked me about style, and I was thinking about it after I published it and some of the comments that I got back about it, and I wanted to say, like, there's so much fun, I guess. There's so much pleasure in developing your own style, and I think so many new people, the people who are looking for their style, which would be, that would be who I was. Oh, I missed one right here. That I was, really trying to talk to. There's an incredible amount of fun and joy in finding, and which you don't find it, you develop it, in developing your own personal style. And I think sometimes people get they lose sight of that, or they don't even get the chance to embrace it. And I think a lot of that comes from the sort of strange fear-based model that many people use for teaching online. And maybe, I'm just looking for a marker color. Maybe that's not just online. Maybe that sort of fear, basing everything on, you've got to have your own style. Oh, this is one of those that someone gave me and it's all mushy. I can still work with it though. It's possible that is done in college as well, like things like afraid of the blank page, and it's just like that's just a fear-based model of teaching that I don't adhere to. I've never believed that the best way to teach is to start with a fear base like that. I don't think I'm anyone's savior or white knight. So I think maybe, I thought I could work with that. I need to change the nib on that one. I guess it doesn't want to work over that because it's wet. That's okay. There's more than one way to get around that. I don't thrive in that sort of a environment, where I'm worried or I'm afraid or fearful. So I try not to teach from that. But I do enjoy a challenge, like I'm never afraid of challenging myself. That's always more of a draw than it is. I'm more inclined to want to do something when I feel I can't, or I feel I don't know, or I feel it's impossible. That usually is the very thing that makes me want to try. It's kind of that whole thing of being told no you can't, I guess, which if you were any like Generation X like I am, there was a lot of that in our childhood from our parents. So for me, it's more of a challenge. But even with all of that aside, if you just ignore advice, I'm a terrible teacher. If you ignore the advice of others and just do what feels good, what seems to bring you enjoyment, I think you'll develop, whatever it's going to be, your style or whatever. I think it will happen for you a lot faster and a lot easier if you just don't listen to any of that. And just don't worry about whether or not what you make looks like someone else's, or even who even cares. If you think about it, you like someone else's because they were fearless enough to keep pushing and to ultimately eventually come up with their own thing. If you think about that, like, they didn't listen. They ignored all of that advice that said, you've got to do it this way. You've got to do it. If we all did everything exactly the way someone was teaching it, all of our stuff would be like what they teach. Do you know what I mean? And there is a certain element or amount of that. I think I'm unlike, not all, but unlike the majority of people, because I don't thrive on being able to do what someone else does. I thrive more on being able to do what is in my head or what I think I want. So, I don't have that drive where my art is concerned for that kind of connection. So that, I want something that I make to look like someone else's stuff. I have more of a drive to make what I make look like what I want it to. And I know that there are some, I've met many people, from teaching who actually don't desire that. They want it to look like what someone else has, made. They want to replicate that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it just means that, they're different. They have a different need than I do. But if you want to develop your own style, then that tells me you probably are a little bit more like me, that you want what you want to make, ultimately, in the end. Even if, you're taking a class from someone to learn what they do, that's not your end goal. Your end goal is not to be like, oh, I made, my art looks exactly like so-and-so's, so I'm good, I'm done. I've achieved what I wanted. That's not me. Like, I, for the longest time, actually hated it. If my art looked like someone else, it was it was definitely frustrating when someone would come in, to like one of my live streams and be like, oh, your art looks like such and such. I would be like, no, it doesn't. And I would start listing the reasons why. I was listing all the things that clearly I was, doing that that other person would never do, or that other person would look at it and be like, that's bad, and I think that too very likely was part of what actually did push me to develop my own ideas and style, because I can't decide on eye color. Was that very things, because I strived to not have those kind of comments. I strove to instead not hear that from people. And maybe that is different. Let's see, this is really wet over here where my hand is, so trying not to get it everywhere. Let's see. And I did just put my finger in the green. Of course I did. But yeah, so if you are someone who is, really wanting to do your own thing, I think the advice that I gave in that video should be very helpful. It really is quite true as well, that knowing or exploring who you are, and by that I mean incorporating more things of your life into what you create, really helps in getting to that ultimate goal faster. Although I'm not advocating that you rush or hurry, because it's so much fun to figure out, what do I really like. That can be as beneficial in other words, like, once the journey ends, once you know your style, then you just spend a lot of time trying to grow out of it, trying to explore new things, trying to not continue doing the same old thing over and over. So don't rush that, I guess. Don't rush the process of figuring out your style, because it doesn't it never ends. It's like the never-ending story. It never truly ends. You will, once you have a style, and I've seen it many times with artists who had a very clear and specific style, become frustrated and have to spend a lot of time trying to push themselves to develop something new, a new style, new color palette, whatever it might be. You know, they're constantly trying to kind of freshen everything up because they have a very clear, identifiable style now. And once you've, you know, worked with your style so consistently, then you spend your time trying to change it. So in a way, it's all the same. It's all the same. Like, and I enjoy more. I don't know about other people, but I enjoy more spending the time trying to figure out something new than I do just making. And I can't. It's hard to really vocalize because I really like, you know, making things, regardless of whether they're super pretty, regardless of whether they fit any norm that anyone might have out there for, you know, the way something should look, the way eyes should be done. You see how off they are. I always get them different, but that's okay. See, I know that about myself, so I can play with that. And I think that right there is very important that I just said without even realizing it. I know my art. I've played and experimented and tried and done so much, or, you know, to such a point or an extent that I feel more comfort and confidence in what I can do because I know all my flaws. That doesn't mean that I think it's totes okay to have those flaws. I think if someone else can do eyes perfectly aligned every single time, that's a wonderful thing. So it's not a case of settling as much as it is a case of acknowledging my own truths instead of disliking my own truths. Does that make sense? I hope it does. It's worth it. It's totally worth it to just play and not assign it a value of this is my style until you absolutely have to. Frankly, until people started telling me that I had a recognizable style, I denied that I had one. And I don't, you know, I can't say that at the time I 100% knew why I felt that way, but I definitely felt that way. And now I look back and I'm like, yeah, that's because on some level I recognized that I didn't want to stop exploring. And if I had to admit that I had a style, I had to stop, you know, I had to work with that. See, these are not level. That's the thing, like, I don't care. I can see it, I know it, I can point it out, but I don't care. It doesn't mean a thing to me. I think, you know, I like whatever I like, and that's the end of it. Also, too, this one is like way further away, and that happens quite often. And you know what you can do about that? If you're like me and you struggle with things like that, then use non-permanent water miscible supplies so that you can just play and not stress about it. So I can do this and it's all good, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to matter, and it never had to matter. And that's a freedom that that's a freedom that you give yourself when you accept being different, that it's okay. Oh, the kitties are playing. That it's okay to be different, to, you know, do your own thing. Okay, so now I really super wet this, so I need to let it dry. So I'm gonna let you go. I don't know if I made much sense. I tend to ramble when I'm not specifically teaching, but yet I'm still trying to make art. Teaching online is not easy, especially if you're doing it, you know, just live with no editing, which is how I do most of my teaching. But anyway, oh, and look, the camera has gotten like super dark for some. Oh, it's me leaning in, I guess. No, I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much. If you were watched this through, didn't make much sense, but it was a little interesting, a little bit fun. And I will hopefully do more YouTube videos or videos just for YouTube. I don't know that I will do them all so free and open as this, but I did want to say I am going to release something to my Etsy shop, and I've not done this before, but I feel like it would be interesting. Someone might enjoy it. So I have a lot of stencils that I mostly use for like demonstration or testing purposes. Oh, sorry about that. So they've only been used like the one time, just so that I could demo them for, usually for like photos for my Etsy shop. And I think I'm just gonna throw a bunch of them together into, I don't know what I would call them, tester packs or something, because I have a lot of them, and I'm not going to use them because I have many duplicates of my stencils anyway. But like I said, I have lots of these like this. The one I used just a few minutes ago was one of these for this girl here. So if you wanted to get a handful of stencils, especially like my newer ones, this would be a really cheap way if you don't care that they have a little bit of StazOn ink on them, because that's mostly what I use for testing purposes, are little, yeah, if I could find them, little StazOn ink packs. So yeah, let me know what you think of that. Would you be, well, actually, don't even worry about it. I'm just going to list them in my Etsy. They'll probably be there today or when this video goes live. And yeah, those will be there, and they'll be for an affordable price, and you'll get, you know, a handful of gently used, think of a perfume tester, gently used stencils. They will be good for a very long time still. I've only used them once or twice, and then I can get rid of them and get them out of my studio, because I have stacks and stacks of stencils. I have way too many stencils, and most of them have only been used once or twice. So this will be a good way for me to clear out the studio. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, and remember to put you into everything that you make, even if you're following, you know, you're maybe repeating a lesson that someone taught you, so that you can kind of learn the different elements of that lesson. Still try to put you into it, whether that is a color choice or like in this case, we've just started hurricane season back up again. And you know, having gone through a category 5 hurricane alone by myself, I have a lot of anxiety and thoughts and feelings about it, and hurricane season being back, and there now being a potential storm that would be in the area that, you know, could very likely come here. I'm thinking a lot about it, so I put me into my page. So this is a page basically of me thinking about the hurricanes and that kind of thing. This is actually one of my little stencils. based on the hurricane, 2 hurricanes ago. 2 hurricanes ago, not a Cat 5 hurricane. During the Cat 5 hurricane, I was listening to audiobooks as much as I could, but the roof like lifting and feeling the gusts of wind actually get into like the eaves of the roof and stuff, it was quite terrifying. So I wasn't getting a lot of art done, but those feelings then, can be processed and dealt with in a healthy way in my art journal. But anyway, again, what I'm trying to point out is simply the fact that putting you into your journals is how you eventually develop your own style. More, I think, than anything else. You could take 1,000,000 classes and you're still not going to be you there. It's not until you put yourself in, until you pour your who you are in a way into the pages, that is when you will truly start to kind of develop who you are as an artist, as a person, and sort of all of that sort of comes together into your style. So anyway, I'll see you guys later.